And we are
Welcome to the Midcoast Community Council meeting of April 9th, 2014. Will the council members please introduce themselves?
Dave Wolf.
Dan Haggerty.
Chris Johnson.
Lisa Ketchum?
Laura Stein.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is the Board of Supervisors report. We have Nicholas Calderon, Supervisor Horsley's legislative aide. Nick of time, Nick.
How you guys doing? It's good to see you guys.
Yeah, it's been a long
Nicholas.
time.
You know, I get distracted by the ocean every time I come out here.
Oh, that's nice.
All right.
Not the
It
entertainment
is beautiful,
company.
isn't it?
That comes second. It's the drive out that always gets me. All right. So it's good to see you guys. I apologize. Last meeting I wasn't able to make it. We were feeling a little under the weather at the time, but we are much better now. All right. So first item of the report. I know last meeting you guys discussed the LED light project that we're trying to do out here, which is converting the lights from the either high pressure sodium or low pressure sodium to LED. And so one of the things that, and I'm not sure if you had this conversation, but one of the things we were proposing is to pick a location at each community and swap them out from the existing lights to the LED. And we wanted to know if you guys have any suggestions as to where those locations should be. We can pick them, but we wanted to make sure that they're in a high visibility area. And so if you guys have any recommendations as to where we should do that, please go ahead and let us know. There's time. So if you guys can let us know where you think it'd be best to swap those out, we really appreciate that. One of the concerns I did hear is that switching to LED may affect in a negative manner the way you can see the stars out here. I have an image here I will leave with you guys. I can send you a PDF as well so you can see it, put it on the website. I'll also hold it up. But what you'll see is one of the benefits of LED lights is the light doesn't bleed out. So the LED lights are pointed in a specific direction, the light goes down, and it doesn't disperse. Thank you. And so you'll actually, provided that you're not standing directly under one of the lights, you're actually going to be able to see the stars better. So it's actually going to be better for stargazing. It's going to be better for the environment. That's going to be better for drivers. It's all around going to be better. And that's our opinion. However, we want to hear from the community. So if the community is saying otherwise, then we're not going to proceed with this project. But we want to hear from you guys. We want to give you an opportunity to provide us feedback. And like I said, so if you guys can pick one location in each community, we'd be happy to kind of get started on that. So I don't know if you guys want to maybe just email suggestions or put it.
Well, can I just say, Nicholas, you had suggested that this be in the commercial areas.
Correct.
And that, to me, that makes sense. So that would be like somewhere on Main Street, for example, in Montera, and on Carlos Street in Moss Beach, and in El Granada, either Obispo or Alhambra, just something sort of, are we going to get into a full-on thing here? Or you want to?
Have a question for Nicholas.
Right.
If, when they're installed, even just the trial one, if you get significant feedback that they're too bright, will you have them replaced with lower intensity ones?
We can absolutely look into that. If that's the feedback we're getting, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can. There are certain standards that we'll have to meet, but we will be happy to look into all of that based on the feedback that we collect. So.
Anyway, just to finish up, it makes sense with what you said, because that way more people will see it, because it's in
Right.
common areas, and it's not going to be right by somebody's house or something like that.
Exactly. So if you guys
unless
are,
anybody
if everyone's okay with it, we can just move forward and swap two out.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah?
I got a question near the post office.
It seems
That's a
like,
great idea.
it seems like it's the only way to really show for real what it's going to look like.
Exactly.
Photographs are just never going to do it.
Absolutely, I agree.
And if you're considering multiple spectrums, I know there's at least two different spectrums for the LEDs, it might be good to get one of these.
Yeah, and I think, what we can do is do a brighter one that will probably be in the commercial areas and a lighter one that will be in the residential areas, as to not bother the neighborhoods. So we'll go ahead and move forward. We have a conversation.
Question on that, though?
Oh, yeah, of course, sorry about that, Dan.
Through the chair, okay.
Sure.
So you mentioned that a certain type of reflector would concentrate the light straight down, and you would be able to see the stars better unless you were directly underneath it. Wouldn't that scenario make it, darker further away? So wouldn't that be? I guess I'm asking, is that, if you're going to rob Peter to pay Paul?
Right. Yeah, it's cone shape first, so it'll be cone shape, and it will, the existing gaps that you guys have right now so the streetlights out here aren't like the streetlights you'll find in San Francisco or San Mateo, somewhere like, a more urbanized city, where you naturally have further gaps between your streetlights, and that's, my guess, done for a specific reason. And so you're going to continue to have gaps between lights. That will not change.
Right.
And so it wouldn't be, I wouldn't consider it robbing from Peter to give to Paul. And I understand what you're saying, but I don't see it being that way.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure I'm not sure that you do. What I'm concerned is if we're talking about the same lumens, right? Essentially the same lumens. So instead of having it broadcast out with a soft, large glow, we're gonna have a little bit more concentrated, sharper glow. So somebody over here that might have been getting a little glow, they might say, hey, wait a second, where was, I liked my little glow over here 3 houses down. Do you understand now?
Right, and we can
Okay.
look at different types of fixtures in that type of situation.
Okay.
Yeah, we can look at different types of situations, or different type of fixtures to address that.
And they are, back again, it's the same amount of light. We're not changing out, putting a brighter
That's correct.
lumen.
That's correct.
Okay.
It's just, it's a
And-
more natural white light versus a yellow light.
Okay, so the white is the only option? Are there other
I think,
spectrums?
so there is technology out there to look at that you can do different types of, different colored LEDs. I believe PG&E, who we'd be working with, tends to stick with white. And we haven't had any conversations about, different blue or like a blue or anything like that.
Yeah,
We haven't had that.
more of what we have. I think some of the, at least myself, would be interested in having it stay the same as much as possible.
Okay. Yeah, and
That's
and
just-
that's absolutely, and that's why we want to do this pilot program, because if we hear from everyone saying they want to keep it the same, then it doesn't really make much sense to go forward with this type of project. So, but yeah, so
Well, they could recreate the same with LED, right? You could-
like a yellow light.
Essentially, so that all you're doing is reducing the power consumption.
When we
Right.
get the sample lights, you'll have your old yellow and you'll have your new, and you can see the difference.
Yeah,
Then we can talk about it.
Yeah, well, I can't answer your question. I haven't had any conversations with PG&E about.
Okay, I'll talk to
getting-
y'all, I'll talk to you offline.
Yeah,
Okay.
sounds good.
Great.
I am happy to announce that the county successfully was awarded the $500,000 that it applied for the parallel trail in El Granada and Miramar. So we received $500,000 from the TA Measure A Bike and Ped program, and so we're going to do the planning, permitting, and design, which will start at the city-county line and go up to Coronado Street. Capistrano Street? Which one? Which one?
Coronado.
Coronado, thank you. Coronado Street. And so we have heard a little bit as to what the timeline is, which is we're going to start having the conversation with the TA about MOUs and contracts and all of that. So I don't know when this is going to move forward. Keep in mind, we just had our project kickoff meeting for the congestion management project, which we were awarded those funds almost 2 years ago. So I don't know when we're going to actually be moving forward with this, but I will keep you guys posted as we move forward. Speaking of the congestion management project, we just had our project kickoff meeting, like I said, and that was a meeting between just the county, specifically myself, and the consultant and the TA, and that was really just to discuss what the consultant's gonna provide us with, a rough timeline. And it's looking like we may get our first draft of designs in June. And so what I would like to do is work with the subcommittee of the MCC, which, if I recall correctly, it's Lisa, Laura, and Dan, for the outreach for this project. And so we should talk about, maybe having our first meeting and sitting and establishing this outreach plan.
Is this going to be a public meeting, like a special venue kind of a thing? Or, are we just
larger
planning a
meeting.
meeting? Or are we planning a whole campaign? What is it?
We're gonna plan the first meeting.
Okay.
So it could be one meeting, it might be two meetings, but that's what we'll sit and discuss.
Okay.
So we should get together shortly here, and I'll email, and like I said, I believe it's Lisa, Lauren, Dan, is that correct?
Yeah.
All right, so I will email you guys, and we'll go ahead and sit and talk shortly here. The county is looking to, as some of you may know, there was a group called the Medical Response Corps out here, which was established to provide medical services in the case of an emergency. There's been some questions around the future of that program. What the county's looking to do is create a new program that is going to incorporate the Medical Response Corps. So we're going to have the Medical Response Corps, we're going to have a division that will be communication, so ham radios. We're going to have a division that's going to be aviation, so people who have their own planes. We're going to have, it's going to include fire, OES, CERT, so we're going to have all of that. And so I believe Nick Gattuso, who's the COSIDE Emergency Response Coordinator, and Don Matei, who is from the Office of Emergency Services, would like to come out here and do a presentation. So
May 14th?
So apparently they're coming out on May 14th, and they're going to be doing a presentation on this matter. I think anyone who's interested in this should really attend. It's going to be a great learning opportunity, and you really get an opportunity to see what is going on to make sure that in the case of a regional disaster, we are able to address that and provide the best services out here as possible. Lastly, on April 12th, Saturday, April 12th, there is a household hazardous waste recycling or a collection center going on in Half Moon Bay. So it's going to be, where are we going to have this here?
Oh, they don't know the location.
That's right.
You have to make an appointment, and then they
That's
tell
right.
you.
So this is by appointment only. Yeah, that's the tricky part. So this is by appointment only. If you have any household hazardous waste that you need to dispose of, call 363-4718. Once again, that's 363-4718. I'll leave these flyers in the back. The flyer has also been posted on the MCC website. It will be on the MCC's website, and it's on Montara Fog right now. It's on Supervisor Horsley's Facebook page. So the one, as Lisa said, the one rule is that you got to call to make an appointment. So please do so if you have any of those items to dispose of.
Question.
Yes.
Okay, so once you make an appointment, where do you take your things?
I'm assuming they'll tell you.
They tell you. You
They'll
pick
tell
a
you.
time and they tell you where to go. It's at the fire station. They just don't want people to come
And dump it.
unscheduled.
I see.
Well, that kind of defeats the purpose if you're going to give
Well,
them.
they said they get a few drop-ins, but they don't, they're trying to avoid that.
What fire station?
It's a secret.
It's an undisclosed location.
I think it'll be easier to call, but go ahead and call. Like I said, you can find the flyer online. The MCC will have it on their website.
It was on the Facebook page, but.
The MCC will have it on their Facebook page. It's on Montara Fog, and it'll be on Supervisor Horsley's Facebook as well. So, other than that, I'm done.
Thank you, Nicholas.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any other questions for Nicholas?
I do, actually. Nicholas, do you know when we will have the project scope, the scope of work and the other documents for the Surfers Beach project? Because we had drafts of those a couple weeks ago.
Phenomenal question. So I spoke with the Coastal Commission today. So, I don't know, Chris, did you provide kind of a update at last
Just
meeting?
a real high level of like, it sounded like people were working together, but no nuts and bolts, because you had asked me to.
Got it. So, so we had a great conference call, about 3 weeks ago with the Coastal Commission, with Caltrans, with, the county. Chris was on the call, and we were discussing the project at Surfers Beach. So where we're at right now is we have a conceptual level of, what the project will be, what we would like the project to be. We have provided the Coastal Commission with these documents, and once the Coastal Commission gets back to us with feedback on those documents, we'll be able to release a RFP for a consultant, and at that point, we will let you guys know what the project's going to be, what the conceptual project looks like. Until the Coastal Commission weighs in on it, it's subject to change, and so I really didn't want to come out here 1 week and tell you one project, come out here 2 weeks later and tell you a different project, and so on and so on. So the Coastal Commission has a meeting coming up, and so after that, we anticipate hearing from them on the project description and the scope of work, and we'll let you guys know at that point. The scope of work includes a community engagement element, so we'll be bringing a design out here so people can see what it would look like, and we'll do that at a point in time where we can gather feedback and modify the project as necessary. And what I can say is that the Coastal Commission was happy when they heard about this project, when they heard of the work we had done. Caltrans has been great, and we have a really good partnership going on right now, and this is an issue that we see as an imminent threat to the stability of Highway 1, and if Highway 1 is affected, then the local economy is affected, people getting to work, children getting to school. It's really bad for the entire region, and so that's why we're working very hard to get ahead of this. It's not acceptable for Supervisor Horsley. Supervisor Horsley doesn't find it acceptable to wait for the disaster to happen when you know it's going to happen. So we're working hard to get out ahead of this, and we've been making great ground. It's been 7 months. It's actually been 7 months since Supervisor Horsley sent that letter to Caltrans, and we're making good speed on this stuff. So we're happy with it, and like I said, once the Coastal Commission gets back to us, we'll let you guys know what it looks like. And obviously, any future conference calls that we have, Chris will be on, and Neil Merrill's as well.
Thank you. Anything else?
Quick question, yes, Nicholas?
Yeah.
The recent improvements at the Coronado Highway 1 trail connection there, what was installed that was not there before is a mound of dirt that's right at the end of Coronado, and so what was, where you could see the ocean, you can now not. And it looks to me like it's unnecessary, but it's really unnecessary also to say how sensitive we are here to our ocean views, especially how currently there are trees growing unnecessarily, in my opinion. They're just blocking more and more views. So any little tiny encroachment to our views upset the community. So where should we focus a complaint in that situation?
So that was a Parks Department project. Let me go ahead and talk with the Parks Department and see. It's doubtful that they kind of put those there just because they thought it looked pretty. I would imagine there's a specific reason why those are there, but before I go ahead and commit to that statement, let me talk to them and I'll get back to you at the next meeting.
Okay.
Well, I've also heard complaints about that. I gotta tell you, we don't care what the reason is, it has to go. We really don't care what the reason is, just make it go away.
Well, I can't make that commitment right now. All I can commit to is talking.
I'm requesting that you pass on that sentiment.
I will let them know.
Thank you, Leonard. Dave, you had something
Yeah, did you pass on the concern about the 17 bus?
about
The 17 bus up at the...
I copied Nicholas on that email, and you copied him on your reply, so that
Yeah.
communication has happened.
Yes, so we are well aware of that situation. It was Samtrans not, so I'm not the double slide liaison, but what I do know is that the double slide bus is not stopping there. was something that we did not anticipate, but I believe there are conversations going on right now.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is public comment. You have up to 3 minutes to speak on any item not on the agenda. First speaker is Leonard Warren.
Leonard Warren, El Granada, and a longtime member of the board of Granada Sanitary District. I've been saying for a while now, as part of the discussion regarding the proposed GSD reorg and the funding for parks, which would be by shifting some of our existing property tax over to the parks function, that we need to do this sooner rather than later, because every 2 years the state tries to steal the property tax money from special districts. Well, this one snuck up on me. Something was forwarded to me yesterday. There's a signature gathering about to start. It's been approved to start the signature gathering for a statewide initiative, constitutional amendment, to bring back the most corrupt government agencies that ever existed in California, which are redevelopment agencies, but they're going to be brought back even stronger, which means even more crooked than they used to be. And in case I'm not being really clear, a really good rule of thumb is all redevelopment agencies are corrupt, and if you think otherwise, find me one that isn't. Now, the problem is that if they steal our property tax, then we have no money to shift to funding our parks function as proposed by the reorg. The timing on this probably saves us, but just barely. But I urge people to not sign that petition when you see it, which could be as soon as a few weeks from now. Do not sign the petition to get that idiot initiative on the ballot. It's not clear whether it'll be November 2014 or November 2015. And I haven't studied the documentation. I only did a quick read of what was forwarded to me. The replacement for the redevelopment agencies is referred to as JEDI, as in Return of the Jedi. It is, in fact, JEDI. So it's really important that people not sign the petition and not vote for it if it ever gets to the ballot. Because all of your sewer and water rates will go up by a substantial amount, more or less overnight, and it probably has a significant negative effect on other special districts like the fire district, the harbor district. This is just a disaster. And what we really need is a statewide initiative, a constitutional amendment that says you're not even allowed to propose doing this, but I don't think that's ever going to happen. So as I've been saying for a few years now, this pops up every 2 years on average where they try and steal our property tax. And it probably also affects the county. It affects cities. It affects every government agency except the cities that do redevelopment, where they literally, what redevelopment is stealing money from every other government agency. So I hope I've been really clear about how I feel on this and what I'm urging people to do here. This is a disaster.
Thank you, Leonard. Next, we have Lynn Erickson.
Thank you. Lynn Erickson from El Granada. I wanted to make a couple of comments with regard to the Devil Slide Trail. I think it opens with something that seems to dovetail with what you just mentioned, and I wasn't fully aware of the details. But basically, the concerns are the connectivity to the park area. So specifically with regard to Samtrans, there are 2 Samtrans stops on the north and southbound sides of the highway at the south portal. They each have their own ID numbers, which you're told by the sign you can go to an automated system and find out what the schedule and what the story is. If you go to the automated phone system, it doesn't recognize the numbers. If you go to the 511 website, it doesn't seem to have a way to put the numbers in. If you call for an operator, she will tell you there isn't such a stop number, but if you say you really believe there is, she'll consult other information and say, yes, there is a stop there. And the information she provided is if you're standing there waiting for a bus, it will stop for you. And if you want to get off there, it will let you walk. My most fundamental concern with the buses there is on the north side, there are also 2 bus pads. The bus pads don't have Samtrans numbers. And so I have 2 questions about them. One is, are these pads used for the Pacifica shuttle, or will these pads be used in the future for Samtrans stops? And the concern is, without bus stops on either end of the tunnel, the role of Samtrans is to let you take a round-trip walk there, but it really doesn't efficiently further the use of it from a transportation standpoint if you're trying to stop and go through. So the bottom line question there is, are the 2 well-constructed bus pads on the north side intended for use by Samtrans? While I was at it, I looked at it, and I think the public in general, now that the tunnel is in, and the trail is in, is very appreciative of its views, et cetera, but there is a lot of interest in how it connects to other trails, which it doesn't currently do. So I think having a public information session on that, because now that it's there, I think the public is actually more specifically informed about what the questions and issues are. The other is, in particular, the concern of the Gray Whale parking lot being a staging area to walk up to the south portal is certainly there and attractive. I've seen both pedestrians use it and bicyclists pushing bicycles in an area where there's virtually no bicycle shoulder at all, so consider it dangerous. And the 2 questions it raises are, who's responsible to improve it? Are there any plans in place? And in the absence of plans to improve it, is it possible at Gray Whale Cove to post an information sign? If you're a visitor to the area, you could well assume that you could easily go up there, and it wouldn't be till you got halfway up you realized that that probably isn't the case, and that's not the time you want to try to do a turnaround. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Sabrina Brennan. Did you want to talk in public comment?
What's that?
Was this for public comment?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Sabrina Brennan. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to the council tonight. I just had a couple things I wanted to mention that some of you might not be aware of. The San Mateo County Harbor District recently approved moving forward with a new strategic plan, and that's a 15-month process, which will be starting soon. I don't know exactly what date it's going to be starting, but soon. And Lisa Wise Consulting is the firm that was awarded the job. And there is extensive public outreach planned for the process. And I would encourage the Midcoast Community Council and the community to be as engaged as possible, because your input is very important to the planning process. And I know that there are at least a couple people on the council that are interested in trail planning and trail improvements. And I just wanted to remind you that we have a segment of the California Coastal Trail which runs through Pillar Point Harbor, and this might be a good opportunity to address some of the trail improvement issues and trail connectivity in general. And then I also wanted to mention that the Harbor District recently voted at our last meeting to make the post office lot in El Granada, that's the vacant lot, which is actually kind of large, right next to the post office, surplus. And the intention was to make it surplus so that then the district can sell that land. And my understanding is it has to be made available to parks and schools, I think, for the first 60 days if they're interested in purchasing the property. And then it could be, if that doesn't happen, it could be made available to others. So I know that that's a important piece of property for the residents of El Granada, so I wanted to make sure that people were aware of what was happening. And if you have questions, you could ask me now or later or whatever.
So they've designated it as surplus so it can be sold. Do you have any timeline on when that might come up for sale?
Well, I think we have a 60-day window where it could be sold to one of the public agencies that have this. They get the 60-day opportunity before it can be sold to anyone else. And I think, Leonard, it's schools and it's parks and it's low-income housing, correct?
Right.
Okay, those
And
three
that
things.
clock is running right now?
That clock is running, so my understanding is we've, since the last meeting, which was last Wednesday, there was a 60-day window, and then after that, it's up for grabs. We did have a couple of public members. Dan Haggerty spoke as a member of the public at our last meeting, but I think most of the public was unaware that was going to be on the agenda. So I just wanted to make sure that people on the coast side are aware, and especially residents of El Granada. Thank you.
So it's a case then that if, for example, we were interested in it for a public park use, it would have to be county parks as a parks agency purchasing it for a county park would be the only agency in a position to take advantage of that 60-day window.
I think that's correct because of the 60-day window. And that was discussed a little bit during the meeting. And there is a video available. PCTV is videotaping the Harbor District meetings again, and I believe that was the first meeting that they were back videotaping at, and that meeting is on their YouTube channel, so you can watch that part of the meeting, and you can scroll, so you don't have to watch the whole meeting. Thanks.
Thanks, Sabrina. Supervisor Horsley, did you have anything to report, or did you just want to?
No, I just came to support Steve Atwood's.
Oh, great.
Lineup,
Oh, great. Okay.
Midcoast, International Open Spaces.
Well, okay
Is
then.
public comment still open?
And also
Oh, that's
check
right.
out Nicholas.
You're what?
Nicholas,
All right. Do any council members have announcements?
One very brief announcement. The Half Moon Bay Library is having both stakeholder and community meetings. There's a community meeting tomorrow night from, I have the time right, 7 to 9 at the library for 2 to 3. All for our stakeholder meeting.
So, yeah, I just want to make the quick comment about the post office lot, that, that one block stretch is our only town center main part of our town where people gather, come together, and chat about what they did over the weekend, where their kids are going to school, having ice cream at the cafe, and that's really the main hangout for our town. All of the roads, as you can see, the map's covered, but they all kind of converge in to this one stretch. Now, it's a very sensitive lot, in my opinion, because the post office is right there, and I have witnessed at times 10 or more vehicles coming all at the same time to get the mail. So all of that parking is used up on a regular basis. And it's also important to know that the Harbor District is a community, the San Mateo County community, which is the current owner of the property. I think that it should stay in the communities. It's a perfect location for a community type of a use. Considering all of the buffer zone between the ocean and the town and the parking situation. So I think that people should pay attention to how that develops. And second, on the new Devil Slide Trail, it's very beautiful, but I do have to report that I noticed driving north, I think it was on the Saturday after it opened, that what used to not happen here is people parking right on the side of the road, right up to the fog line, to where when doors open, people get out and kids standing out, they're actually in the road. So what is currently happening, it's moving up all the way, even on the dangerous turning areas of the small, what I call emergency pullover zones in some of these spots where people are parking, and when they open the door, as traffic's coming around the blind turn, it's a seriously dangerous situation, and I think a lot of people already know about it, but I just thought it would be good to just make mention of it. So hopefully, nobody gets hurt, and as many people as possible can enjoy the trails.
I'd like to actually piggyback onto that. I'm part of a writing group, and we were able to do a walk on Devil's Slide on Saturday. And this last weekend and the weekend before, I noticed that there are tons of cars that are parked where there's supposedly not supposed to be any parking. And to my knowledge, I don't ever see anybody giving out tickets or anybody getting tickets. And my feeling is if it's no parking, if it's a no parking zone, it should either be enforced or the sign should come down. Because right now, I think it's kind of a joke. It doesn't seem to be, there's no ramifications in terms of parking where it says clearly no parking and no climbing or hiking, and people are walking out to the, I call it the Lemony Snicket house, you know, the one that's like on the cliff just hanging there, and it says no hiking or climbing, and off they go. So the main thing is that it's on a Saturday or Sunday during the week. I don't think it's much of an issue. But on a Saturday or Sunday, like as an example, I counted 18 cars parked in one of the areas where it said no parking. And to my knowledge, I mean, I've never seen any, and I don't know if it's the sheriffs or it's the CHP that's responsible for.
Both are responsible.
Well, I don't know to what extent, but I think that it's something that needs to be enforced a lot more harshly than it has been. Because to your point, I think it's not going to end up as a good situation. Thanks.
Chris?
Yes, I don't know if this applies to anybody in this room, but this Saturday at New Leaf in Half Moon Bay from 10 to 2 is a summer camp fair. There's going to be representatives from, I'd say, at least 10 to 15 different summer camp organizations. So if you know anybody or have any kids of that age, it'd be a good chance to check out what's available this summer, both on the coast side and over the hill.
I have a couple of announcements. There's going to be a triathlon on the coast side Sunday morning, April 20th, from Princeton to Half Moon Bay, from 7 to 11. The Silicon Valley International Triathlon. You can Google that to find their website. The Midcoast portion will start at 7 a.m. with a swim in the outer harbor, starting and finishing at the Yacht Club. Then they're going to bike north on Airport Street to Cypress, south on Highway 1 to Half Moon Bay and the hills beyond, and end at the Johnston House. And then the running course will be in Half Moon Bay at the end. So there's that. And then the City of Pacifica is updating their general land use plan and local coastal plan, which currently date from 1980. The draft environmental report for the plans is available on the city website at www.cityofpacifica.org. Public comments on the documents are due by May 26th.
Lisa, I didn't catch that you mentioned the name of the triathlon that you can.
Oh, Silicon Valley International Triathlon,
Thank you.
which you wouldn't think of for a triathlon on the coast, but they're having their event over here this year. Okay, so is that it on announcements? And okay, so close the public comment. Then consent agenda. Are there any requested changes to the agenda? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved unanimously. All right, so now agenda item 4A is the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space presentation by General Manager Steve Aubers on the recently completed vision plan and the June 3rd ballot measure AA, Regional Open Space Access, Preservation, and Restoration Bond. This is an informational item.
Thank you all. How do you like to be set up here?
Have a seat there.
Okay.
Speak into the mic.
All right. Okay, and when I hit what? Advances. This guy?
Down here.
This guy. Okay. You always have to ask that question first. Anyhow, I'm delighted to be here, and what a wonderful thing to hear citizens concerned about being able to see stars and trails. So that's my impression of El Granada at this point. So. Anyway, my name is Steve Aubers, and I'm the General Manager of Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District. You know us as Mid-Pen, I think some of you probably do. I'd like to thank the Midcoast Community Council for the opportunity to talk to you. And what I'll go discuss a little bit is some of the services the district provides in the area and in our region. I'll talk about a vision plan that we just completed, and also talk about Measure AA that's on the June ballot and is intended to fund that, and answer any questions that you might have. Let's see if I get it right. There we go. The district was, as some of you may know, was originally formed in Santa Clara County, and it's about 200 square miles of Santa Clara County in 1972. Then in 1976, there was 130 miles of San Mateo County that came into the district. And now, with the old coastal protection zone, which is an additional 220 square miles, there's now 350 square miles in San Mateo County. So 350 in San Mateo, 200 in Santa Clara. We own in that area 62,000 acres, which is roughly a little shy of 100 square miles, to give you an idea. And that includes 26 preserves, and I think you probably know many of them. And they occur in San Mateo, Santa Clara, and a little bit of Santa Cruz County. And just so we clear with the statistics, that's 2.3 square miles in Santa Cruz County. So it's a small part of the district. But the land we manage extends from San Francisco Bay all the way to the Pacific Ocean. And if you view it from the peninsula, it's the western skyline. If you view it from here, Highway 1, it's the eastern skyline. So it really depends on your perspective. The district is open 365 days a year at no charge to anybody who wants to go there. We serve about 715,000 residents in district in 17 cities, and our support is primarily through property taxes. Our policy is set by 7 elected board members, and Larry Hassett and Cecily Harris are the 2 directors that represent the coastal area on the San Mateo coast. You see our mission here, which really talks about acquiring property, about stewarding it and restoring it, and about making it available to the public. And that's the district's mission in general. But as I'll discuss in a few moments, there is an even more specific mission that pertains to the coastal preservation area, the coastal protection area, which focuses on agriculture and the entire viewshed. So I'll talk about that in a few minutes. So in terms of the benefits of the region, what does an open space district do? Well, we do a lot of different things, and we've got a full staff of about 120 for this area. But certainly, over the entire area we work in, we try to be consistent in how we carry out our policies. Agriculture, ranching, and even viticulture are some of the working landscapes that are very, very important to us, and they're an essential component of open space, and that may not be clear to everyone. But it indeed is. Agriculture, particularly here on the San Mateo coast, and ranching are big. Viticulture, we have a little more of that just over the hill in Montebello Ridge and that area. All the work that we perform in local creeks, and I'm thinking in terms of Pilarcitos, Lobitos, Tenidas, San Gregorio, and it took me a long time to get those names all right. It took a while. Anyhow, those are designed, the work we do is designed to improve water quality, particularly for salmon and steelhead, which you know are in such trouble right now. And we take a lot of care to protect the watershed vegetation because the runoff that it retains is able to slowly release water back into the creek so that the fish have water throughout the year. And it's not only fish, it's the people who live in this area as well. We own about 100 square miles of dense vegetation, as I mentioned, and it does some interesting things. It pulls enormous amounts of carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. And in the district, we own almost 12,000 acres of redwoods and Doug fir. So that's a lot of carbon being taken out of the atmosphere. It produces even greater amounts of oxygen. It purifies and stores the surface water and groundwater, helps moderate our temperatures, and those people who come from San Francisco to go to Purisima on a very, very hot day can attest to that. And of course produces locally sustainable food, which you know about here better than anyone. And we refer to these as ecosystem services. They're extremely important. There's what actually makes life possible. And in some ways, I've described the work that district does as we are trying to take care of our part of the life support system for this part of the planet. That's really kind of what we do if you sum it all up. We're not a regulatory agency, although some people think we are. Absolutely not. But we do invest a substantial amount in protection of about 70 different rare, threatened, and endangered species. And the reason we do that is that the goal is to improve their population so they can be delisted and no longer require regulatory protection. And why would we do that? Well, it's a benefit to the species because their populations flourish. You as the public like your local wildlife and you like it protected, and that's something we can do. But also businesses benefit because there's fewer regulatory constraints. And there are examples of this actually having happened and having happened in our area. When we, thinking about environmental restoration, when the district takes over a property where we acquire it through whatever means, we immediately assess the condition and then we invest in the restoration efforts. And that can be things like invasive species management, improving the road drainage and the repairs, installing new grazing infrastructure, restoring failing stock ponds, which is a huge, particularly in the very dry San Mateo coast, or cleaning up toxic waste areas, which we've done a number of. But the goal overall is to bring back the land to its original beauty and function to the extent that we can. It will never be as it was 500 years ago, but we're really trying to do our part. And I guess the last couple things I'd also like to mention, we're very careful about how we deal with pest species, whether they're plants or animals. And by the end of this year, we're going to complete our first integrated pest management program for the entire district. And it's designed to use a methodical approach that will use the best biological sciences to use the least toxic method for controlling whatever species we have at whatever levels that we need to achieve an acceptable level of control. And it's just an important thing to protect the environment, to protect non-target species, and as it turns out, we're one of those non-target species, so we always want to keep that in mind. The district also has a very robust volunteer program. We have about 600 volunteers now. We've just added more recently this year. They provide over 18,000 hours of service, and it can be anything from pulling weeds to trail patrol or environmental protection. But it's one of the ways that we stay connected with the community. And if any of you are ever interested, please, I'll leave our cards here, and we'd certainly like to have you join us. So I talked about the coastside protection program. So in 2004, the district was able to extend its boundaries to include this coastside area, and it's this 200 square miles, 220 square miles. And I wasn't here then. I know it was a difficult process, and we're truly appreciative of the efforts of the Midcoast Community Council, and because you supported us in that and have helped us as we moved forward. In this, and if you look at this, we're the only district I know of that actually has two mission statements, but in this 220 square miles that you are in, it not only talks about, all of the ecological sensitivity and the public enjoyment and land protection, but it really focuses in on the rural character and protection of encouraging viable agricultural use of the land. And as I talk here, and if you have questions, I'm happy to answer those. That's something we're very serious about doing. This gives you a map just to provide a sense of it. So the green hatched area is the 220 square miles of the coastal protection area, and then you see the remainder of San Mateo County, and that broken line denotes Santa Clara County to the south. And in your area right here, we have Half Moon Bay, El Granada, which was probably real close to right here, right? Moss Beach, Montero, San Gregorio, La Honda, and Pescadero. So that's within district. We've achieved a number of milestones on the coast side that I think are important to point out. So since 2004, we've protected a total of 10,000 acres here. Of those, 7,700 are grazed, actively grazed today, and there's more money going into that, improving that grazing infrastructure all the time. I'd also mention that lands that the district previously didn't graze, that were adjacent in Santa Clara and other parts of San Mateo County along the ridge line, another 2,000 acres has been brought back into grazing, so our program is just shy of 10,000 acres. And it's an important program, and when we talk about the rural lifestyle and agriculture, ranching is one important part of that. We have a modest row crop program, but we have 2 areas where we have row crops on land that we own, and it's important. It's really important when you think about it, food production, whether it's cattle or it's vegetables, it's something we all have to pay attention to. I mean, forever. So the district's really glad to be part of that, and the board has toured the areas and remains very, very interested in that, in fact, increasingly so. We've done a lot of work in pond restoration here on the coast, spent close to $750,000 in the 6 years that I've been here restoring ponds that serve wildlife, they serve livestock needs, but they also serve that important stream recharge function. And then I mentioned non-native and invasive plant removal when we move into an area. That's something that we always do to make sure that the environment is protected as much as possible. So that gives you a sense of who we are and what we do. Those of you who know the district, and I'll assume everyone in here has a sense of who Mid-Penn is. We've been known for our land acquisition, for better or for worse, over the years. And I know I've heard a lot of the stories, and I've seen a lot of the wonderful work that's been done. But there's other piece to the mission. There is the restoration piece, and then there's the public access piece. And the board realizes, and has realized, that eventually our future, there's a point at which you can't buy land anymore, and you have to manage it, and you have to get the public out there, because the public is who paid for it. So what we did here over the last 2 years is we said, well, what would the district look like for the next 40 years? We just finished our first 40th anniversary, so what does the next 40 years look like? So we really engaged the public. We had a community advisory committee. Supervisor Horsley represented this area very, very well on that committee, and I think you were at almost all the meetings, more than...
I was. I made sure that all of the San Mateo County projects were prioritized.
That's right. That's right. But when we went to the public and we used social media, we did polling, we did focus groups, we did large community meetings, we found out there's really 6 categories that were really generally very, very important to the public, and here they are. And you notice preservation of ag on the San Mateo coast, huge. Public access, people want to get out on the land, or they want to know that they can. They don't necessarily, it doesn't mean there's going to be a flood of people, but they just want to know they can. And 54% of our land is open, the rest is closed. So we have a job ahead of us. We understand that. They want the open spaces and the natural beauty protected. Redwood forests, the iconic redwood forests of the Santa Cruz Mountains, are unbelievably popular with the public throughout the district. I mean, 97% of the people in the district think it should be a top priority. Obviously, clean water and clean air has always been very, very important. And creating the healthy habitat for the animals that live here is for those of you who are in this area, it's part of the environment in which we live, so that's also very, very important. So we took all that information, we looked at it technically. So we found out, okay, where are the gaps? Where are the corridors that we're going to have to stitch together so that the larger species will be able to survive over time? Where are the important areas, to set aside where we might want to have parking or gathering places for the members of the public? What are the important rare resources, the water resources, the plants and animals? We identified all of that in great, great, great detail. And then we started to list project areas we might have, and then we brought those to the public. And what the public's, at the end of the day, there were 54 projects, and of those, the public prioritized 25 of them as the top tier projects. And so in the vision plan, so we have the 25 top priority projects that we'll start working on, and we're starting working on those today. But the question was, how do you do that over time, and how do you do it quickly? Because there's generations that can get passed up because of the size of the task that we have. And let me give you a sense of the size of that task. So these are the 25 projects that really stretch from Highway 92 and 35 all the way down to past Mount Umunhuma. Does anyone know where that is here? Raise their hand. One person. Two do. Anyhow, it's almost down to San Jose, so it's a very, very big area. And so these are the projects that were identified throughout this, and they all deal with access, some deal with acquisition, they deal with restoration, but it's all those priorities that the public had and that I mentioned earlier. And it's a big, very, very ambitious plan. For your area that you're most, I would guess that you're most concerned about, we put this together so you can take a look at those in here, and so there's really 6 of them. Miramontes Ridge, the long-term plan would be to open it to the public, and you can read, new trails, restoring streams, enhancing the local farms in that area. The Purisima Creek, completing the Purisima to the Sea Trail. It's been a long-time dream for a lot of people here, and again, Lobetas Creek, restoring that watershed. We want to see anadromous fish going back up that area in numbers. La Honda Creek, both the upper and lower La Honda in Driscoll would be restoring that habitat, reintroducing livestock, and I can report to you that as of this week, livestock is back on La Honda at the Red Barn. La Honda Creek also removing the fish barriers for the lower part of the creek. And then on Russian Ridge, Mindigo Hill, I think some of you may know where Mindigo is, be opening new trails there and building the infrastructure to reintroduce the livestock grazing there, as we promised the Farm Bureau that we would do that, and that work is beginning now. And then Cloverdale Ranch, it's a post-acquisition 6,000 acres, number 13, south of here, but it's something that we'd eventually take over. Well, we'd purchase it from Post, and then we would. So these are some of the major coastside protection projects in the coastside protection area that we would be working on. Now, the discussion that we then had, so we have these projects, and this is the next 40 years. Well, we'd like to start some of these and get them done much sooner. We'd like to accelerate this process. So we looked at a structure of doing that was affordable. We costed out the top 25 projects, and they ended up right around $300 million. Just because of where the district is located, and because Silicon Valley in this area is such an engine of wealth and opportunity, we are able to create a general obligation bond over 30 years that would never exceed $3.18 per 100,000. And so for a typical house in the coastside area, that'd be about $20 a year. That rate actually starts out, though, for the first couple of years at $1 per 100,000. So it's like $6.50. And that $3.18 is as high as it would ever go. And so there's a lot of people that say, well, you're a government agency. How do we know we can trust you? Good question. So what we did is we built in a mechanism. It's a public or a community oversight committee that would have 7 members. They would be eventually selected and approved through the board of directors in an open public process. They'd be taking nominations. And this group would be charged with overseeing the work that we do. So every year when we do a report on what we've done, have those funds been spent appropriately? And then our commitment is to publish whatever they say. So what we're trying to do is really commit ourselves transparently and right up front in how this would go forward. Now, the question may be asked, well, you have these 25 projects, they're capital expenditures, and that's all the money could be used for is capital. You've said that, well, there's 25. Are you going to start doing different things with that money? No. The only reason that could happen is if some project, for some reason, was no longer able to be done, then the community oversight committee, we could bring that to the community oversight committee, and they could help determine if it's appropriate use of funds to shift it to something else. But that's like a contingency way down the road. But I just wanted to give you a sense of how we've looked at this. We've really tried to paint a very clear picture for the public, as clear, I think, as a public agency can. And the intention is to live up to this. So that is how this is structured. If Measure AA doesn't pass, we'll still keep working on these projects. It's just the pace will be much slower. We just completed our I think El Corte de Madera, the staging area, and I think that was a 18-year project. So these can take a long time. We can accelerate these substantially, and that's really the goal of this, because we don't want to miss a generation. And they're important environmental areas, particularly thinking about, the redwood trees and that area that we want to save now while we can. So those are my comments, and if the council would like, I can be available for questions from anybody.
Let's start with the council. Do you have any questions? Eric?
She's ignoring me.
Go ahead. Do I go first? So I have two questions. The first is, you had mentioned that you're a government agency.
Mm-hmm.
Under what department are you?
We're not under department. We're actually a special district. You were hearing about special districts here a little while ago. We're a special district form of the California Public Resources Code, Section 5500. And if you look that up, you'll see all our enabling legislation right there. It says what we can do. We're named specifically in that. And so we're, in a sense, a division of the state in that sense, but we're a special district over 3 counties. The East Bay Regional Park District, similarly, over 3 counties. We're not like county parks, which is a subset of county government. We're separate, sort of, that lays over that. Another example would be Santa Clara Valley Water District, for instance. That's another special district. Your sanitary district here, I believe, is in the same situation. So it's in that group of districts.
Okay.
Does that help?
So, yeah, thanks. And just one more quick thing. So it seemed to me from the information that you provided that there's a emphasis on grazing. You had mentioned that 77% of the total protected area is for grazing. And so my question is, why is that? Why is there an emphasis on grazing land?
It's not 77. It ends up being 77%. You did the math. I hadn't looked at it that way. The emphasis on grazing is because the district had originally taken grazing off the land every time we purchased it. And one of the reasons I was brought here, and some of you may know Clayton Copeman, who's our range management specialist, and now Elena, who works in that. I was involved in watershed management for 25 years before I came to this district. And grazing management, properly executed, is a very viable way to manage particularly flashy fuels, grasslands, and keep them in grasslands. If it's managed poorly, it can create real environmental problems. I want to be very clear about that. But what we've done is not created more grazing where it didn't exist. We've simply worked with existing ranchers that are there, and we have a commitment to do that, or if for whatever reason the property was left without a rancher, then we would bring someone else in. So we've just kept agriculture on the San Mateo coast rather than taking it away. Does that make sense to you?
I'm assuming that the ranchers who are using the land to graze their cattle on, they're paying for the right to be able to do that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we have I can go into all the detail of that, but we call it animal unit month rate, and it's based on, I think it's probably about 18% of the market rate. It's a little bit lower on the coast because the water is scarcer and there's actually less grass over here. But it's based on the cattle market, and as the cattle market goes up or goes down, so do the rates to the ranchers. And a lot of that money will get plowed back into infrastructure that is then owned by the public, or it will come back to the district's general fund.
Okay, and then just one last question. So you said that a lot of the impetus behind this is sort of return back to where things were. Is that like in the 1800s or in the 1920s or?
There's no specific, good question, but there's no specific point in time. It's just that when we come to a piece of property where, let's say it was logged, and many of these, most of the San Mateo coast was logged, and the logging roads have created deep ravines that are just pouring sediment down into the streams and choking out salmon. We go down and actually repair those roads. We return the watershed function to something where the water runs clean, the fish can get back up. We improve the habitat so the fish have a place to breed, for example. And that's the kind of work we try to return it to its natural function. There's no particular point in time because, 200 years ago it was an old growth forest here. Well, an old growth forest won't happen in our lifetimes, but we can set it on that course, and the work we're doing is doing that.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
First of all, I have endorsed your bond.
Well, thank you.
Okay. My question is, there's always a plus and a minus, and I do have a hard time understanding how someone would be against the bond, but maybe you could talk about some of the objections that you get.
I haven't gotten, actually, many objections to it. Some people have a sense of the district in that we're wildly using eminent domain. We haven't actually used eminent domain in 16 years, and there's no talk about using it. But when you do something like that, it echoes through the system for years and years and years. So there's some misinformation out there about that. Some people just don't. Pardon?
And we can't use it in the coast.
And you can't use it in this too. We agree to that. In the coastal protection area, eminent domain is off the table. There's some people who just don't, by their nature and politics, don't want to pay taxes, period. And so they don't want to, some people would rather have the land in private ownership than in public ownership. So those are some of the objections that we hear. That's the kind of discussion in a democracy. You have folks on both sides of those issues.
Well, I think you've done an incredible job, and it's pretty exciting, the plans you've laid out.
Well, thank you. We really tried.
Yeah, I just want to thank you applaud you for a great presentation and all the great work that you're doing. I've also endorsed the measure, and just want to make note that that there's a lot of people worldwide that could potentially appreciate all of the great everything that will be improved here, the beautiful system that is. I got a quick question about the Purisma to Sea Trail.
Mm-hmm.
How long is that, and is there plans for backpacking camps, or is it not?
There's no plans for backpacking camps, because actually part of our agreement under LAFCO was that we wouldn't have camping out there. So if the public ever says we changed our mind, we want to have that, then we have another process to go through. But right now, that is something that we can't do. We're prohibited from doing it. I think it's probably about 7 or 8 miles from the top.
Skyline down to Dirty Road, and there's no actual concrete plans.
Right.
We've got schematics of where it's of how it's laid out, and the properties have been acquired, so the route is there. It's just now actually funding that trail and making it work for the public, because the trail work in fact, there's a video I will send you a link to, and you can share with the council members. We just did on how you build trails. Our staff, one of the things they're known for throughout the state is how they build trails, and they're designed to be as almost maintenance-free and to really treat the water that comes off it so it doesn't cause any erosion. And so there will be a very focused design period that will occur when those trails are put in.
There's one more piece of property that we are still talking to on Christmas Farms, but that is, I believe, a lot line adjustment, so that should be good.
Thanks, Steve.
Sorry. Dave?
Yeah, not so much of a question. I too endorsed this bond. I've been hiking on the Huntington Space District land since the open space open trails, and probably in some places before.
Careful there.
Anyway, I'm very appreciative of this effort, and I've even personally donated on to the open space district, so I applaud the measure and the process that came through.
I just wanted to add my 2 cents before I open the public comment. I attended the Vision Workshop in Half Moon Bay, and it was very interesting and fun. and also endorsed the bond measure. And I love your trails, I love your preserves, and you mentioned the trail construction, specifically your trails, they're perfect.
Yeah.
And I wish the county would model, that we could get more of that style here. They're wonderful.
Well, we work both closely with both Santa Clara and San Mateo counties, and I bet you there could be a work group put together so we could do that.
That would be very cool.
Would you write that down and sign it?
Let's say, public comment, we have Leonard Warren. After Leonard, Sabrina.
Leonard Warren, El Granada. One question that has occasionally come up is why should GSD do park stuff when there's other entities, specifically MROSD? So I would like, I'd like the MROSD general manager to expand on what I'm going to say, which is that MROSD pretty much only deals in very large parcels outside the urban-rural boundary. So there is no duplication between what MROSD is doing and what GSD is proposing doing. They're completely non-overlapping. So if you want to expand
No,
on that
that is true, and I personally reviewed that request when it came from LAFCO, and I'm very familiar with, in the other work I've done, I've also worked for the East Bay Regional Park District in years past, and the sort of the city park function and the sort of infrastructure you have there is a very different discipline than open space management. And county parks in many ways sort of spans that, in the middle, but you're absolutely right, where it's kind of opposite ends, so there really was no overlap. And we tend not to we have interests, but we really have kept most of our work on the south side of Highway 92. As you know, the National Park Service has done a lot of fairly large acquisitions north of 92. So we saw it as something that we wanted to support. It seemed reasonable, and it's your community, so that's a decision you have to make. But from our perspective, it was something that made sense to us.
Thanks, and I'll also throw in my comment that I do endorse this, that I will vote for it, and it'll cost me $12.50 a year, maybe.
Sabrina?
Hi, Sabrina Brennan. Let's see, I've got a couple questions. So I wanted to also mention that I'm always impressed with the quality of the trails. They're exceptional, and I don't show up at your board meetings because your trails are so great. There's no reason for me to go and complain about anything. And I love to comment on trails. The county knows all about that. So I did have a couple questions about your board meetings, since I haven't ever attended any. I wondered how many people are on the board of your special district?
7.
7, okay. And obviously you guys meet in Los Altos, is that?
Generally, they're meeting actually as we speak. But when we have, and this is again part of our coastal protection, the agreement, the implementation agreement, anytime we have any land that we purchase over here, or if we have a grazing lease that we're bringing on board, we hold our board meeting here in the coastal area. And those are announced, and if any of you are interested in attending those, and we like to have people who are interested in what we do to come, let us know and we'll put you on that mailing list. So we do hold probably half a dozen meetings on San Mateo Coast every year.
And I know in the past when the community, like the Midcoast Community Council, has planned joint meetings related to trail planning and stuff like that, you guys have always been very receptive to showing up and speaking about your projects, which is really helpful for the community, so we appreciate the outreach.
Partnerships are our organization sort of built on partnerships with the counties, with the cities, and with other organizations, private entities within the district, so that it is important to us.
Okay. So my assumption is that this special district is extremely well-run, and that's purely based on the quality of your trails. I have to keep saying that. However, I would be interested to tune into one of your meetings, and I'm wondering if there might be an opportunity in the future where you guys would consider videotaping your meetings so that the public could check out what's happening with the board meetings. And I know you've got oversight included in your Measure AA pamphlet here, which talks about the Citizen Oversight Committee. But I'm wondering if videotaping board meetings might be even a better way to provide that sort of public oversight.
You know, I think you're probably right. We have gotten to the point that we record all of them. All the meetings are recorded, but we don't have the video, any of the video equipment yet. But it's possible to do, and I'll certainly pass that on to the board. I think it's the future for the district. I don't know if it's the future tomorrow or maybe a year after, but it's coming. And you see it in so many places where you can, you know, either look at the meeting as it's happening or not. So it is a very powerful tool to reach out.
Thank you. I really appreciate you being here, and it was a great presentation.
Thank you.
Jim Sullivan?
Thank you, Lisa. Hi, Steve. We met a few times before. Really appreciate you being out here also. I just wanted to make a few comments about the siltation modifications that you folks have made at El Puerto de Madera. And as a moderate mountain bike rider, I think they're wonderful. I think it's a fantastic job. It's really brought the trail schematic together in a way that's just really broadened the appeal to so many different riders and walkers and that sort of thing. The connection from Corte Madera down along Tenitas Creek, I really look forward to seeing that happen. I fully support this bond measure. I find it just to be, you know, money well spent, again, for quality of life, as you brought out in your presentation. I want to really encourage you with your coastal expansion, to myself and the folks that I, you know, orbit around. If you look at the National Park Service, the state parks in McNee, Rancho Corral de Tierra, Swaney, Morey Point, even county parks now, the last 3 county parks here, Quarry Park being, of course, was here before, but Pillar Point Ridge and Devil Slide Trail were all opened up as multi-use parks and lands. And I just want to encourage you to really look at that and reflect that as your coastal expansion happens. We've got interconnected multi-use trails here. It brings people to the communities. We don't, here on the coast, have an El Camino Real with huge amounts of box stores and tax revenues that the Chamber of Commerce and everybody just, you know, loves to, you know, encourage, because it does provide funding for all the various aspects of the community. So I just wanted to thank you again for coming tonight. Okay.
Anybody else want to speak? Close the public comment, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you.
For coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure, and be happy to come back again sometime. You know, maybe it's something we might...
Let us know if there's anything we can do.
Yeah.
We're glad to help.
Okay.
Well, those of us working on some of the other parks measures are happy to help.
Okay, so I'll give you guys a minute to slip away. Our next item is, can you just pause for a minute? Steve? Pause? Oh.
Steve.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Take a look.
Do we have any,
Thank you very much.
Everything takes longer than you think. Yes, that's next. How many we got? Isn't that say big way?
well, see, we're just trying to evaluate our
It's good, it's just to me, it's a good price.
Getting my feet. It works both ways, because, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, we got around that by sharing.
You know, I'm deep in this.
I haven't been there.
And I don't know.
Questions comes like, oh, that's how somebody can see it. It gives you a chance to practice. Plus, also, start.
Yeah.
As luck would have it, they didn't know. That sounds great.
Well, I appreciate your comments because my first thought was when I looked through your letter and the referral document also.
But the view is better now than the old one.
That is true. That is true.
I have some thoughts
And it's a really nice
but I'm just not gonna
ambiance.
say
Like,
things I don't know.
years and, you know, like the window
I sent to Lisa
and then I
and she
talked
has
to
time to
like,
help me out.
Thank you.
And so you did, which was perfect, and so I'm glad that I revealed my ignorance and sent you the questions or the comments and you know, to kind of, like you said, get me in there and
Yeah, I
into it,
can,
you know.
right. It's been a long deal, and in 2009, this was, I spent a whole month on that draft. So we're back, and it's still April 9th. So it's agenda item 4B, Big Wave Project, North Parcel Alternative. The Big Wave Project is a major development proposed for 20 acres. Wait a minute. Let me just go out on a limb here and assume that everybody knows what this is. The Big Wave Project's been around for a long time. It's on Airport Street, west of the airport. There is now, the project was approved by the county in 2011, but denied on appeal to the Coastal Commission in 2012 due to many inconsistencies with the local coastal program. So now we have a North Parcel Alternative. This is a new application which would reduce the size of the business park, making room for the wellness center on the north parcel next to Pillar Ridge residential community and leaving the south parcel undeveloped for now. Last November, MCC hosted an informational presentation on the North Parcel Alternative by the Big Wave Project engineer, followed by question and answer. That presentation, plus the minutes and the video, plus current site plans and other background materials are all posted on the MCC website and will be kept up to date. It's on the Big Wave issues page. The website is www.midcoastcommunitycouncil.org. The North Parcel Alternative project application is not yet considered complete, despite what you read on at the review. But at this point, county staff has distributed the project referral to various agencies, including MCC, for initial comments, which are due April 11th. Tonight, we will only be considering the project referral, which is posted on the website and in the binder outside, which describes the changes to the project in the North Parcel Alternative. MCC comments and questions on the referral are directed to planning staff, not to the decision makers. Comments at this time are focused on the completeness and accuracy of the application. This is not the time to weigh in with opinions on the project as a whole, which should be directed to the Planning Commission, who are the decision makers later in the process. The public process for project approval will include circulation of the environmental review document for a 30-day public comment tentatively in July, followed by Planning Commission hearings tentatively in August and September. The desired outcome for this agenda item is to approve the initial project comments to county planning staff. We have a draft letter, which has been posted on our website since Sunday, and I'll go over the main points in the letter. The location of the project mentions Pillar Point Marsh a salt marsh habitat adjacent to the project. Actually, the marsh adjacent to the project is a freshwater marsh. So pointed that out. Project information. From a land use perspective, this project is a 5-building business park, buildings A through E, totaling 189,000 square feet, and a 4-building wellness center, buildings 1 through 4, totaling 70,500 square feet. There's a discrepancy between the online permit site and the project referral, the difference being this commercial building A, 27,000 square feet, which the referral seems to want to put that in as part of the wellness center, where clearly it is a commercial building, it's part of the business park. The lot that it sits on is to belong to the wellness center, so it's part of their endowment, but it's not part of the wellness center, it's part of the business park. So we're saying that this should be corrected throughout. There's a number of places where this issue shows up. The initial ownership of the subdivided lot doesn't equate with ownership of future buildings. The purpose of the major subdivision is so the lots drawn as footprints of the commercial buildings can each be sold separately. Under building use and heights, the term basement is used for the ground floor, which we say is confusing. And also the question of what will be on the first floor. It looks like they're saying there might be a swimming pool under 2 of the buildings, so assuming that that's an error, we're asking what would be on the first floor in place of the extra pool, and has first floor parking been considered as a beneficial use? These wellness center buildings are built up basically sort of like the houses in Miramar, where the first floor you can't really live there. I guess in Miramar, they're garages or storage, but so the wellness center buildings they want to get the elevation up to 30 feet above sea level. They're not going to do this with grading. They're just going to be doing it by building the building taller, and then the question is, what do you put on the first floor? So parking was a thought that they might. And then also, in the comparisons, they say that they have, with the North Parcel alternative, they reduced the maximum building height from 51 feet to 36 feet, whereas the project, as approved by the county but denied by the Coastal Commission, was alternative C, with commercial buildings 36 feet high, 2-story in the front row, and 46 feet high, 3-story in the back row. And that was what was demonstrated by the story poles in 2010. On the density of development, at the 2006 Big Wave Pre-Development Public Workshop, the business park proposal consisted of 4 buildings, 2 stories high, containing 155,000 square feet total, versus 189,000 square feet in the North Parcel alternative proposal. The 2006 development density was presented as fully supporting all project goals. The major issue for the Coastal Commission was the density of the business park that was tied to the wellness center. It would seem no hardship to scale back the business park at least to the 155,000 square foot level of the 2006 proposal. The North Parcel alternative development density on the northern parcel is relatively unchanged from the project that was denied by the Coastal Commission. Benefit from this alternative is dependent on protection of the southern parcel from future development and restoration of those wetlands. How can this outcome be guaranteed? Beach parking. There's a new twist we just saw on the February 20th tentative subdivision map. It shows 51 beach parking spaces along Airport Street edge of the southern parcel. 10 of these parking spaces are within the 100-foot wetlands buffer. And also backing out of these 90-degree angle parking spaces directly onto Airport Street will be hazardous. The parking will not be screened from the street and will diminish the scenic quality of the area as well as the value of the wildlife corridor. The most useful location for beach park, see, the beach parking is required as a percentage of the parking lots, but they can put it, I guess, wherever they want. But the most useful location would be on the south side of the Big Wave southern parcel alongside the existing buildings, with at least a walking trail connection to the county overflow lot and West Point Avenue. Landscaping and building exteriors. Mainly the comment is to choose, in choosing exterior building materials and colors, we suggest that every effort be made to have the buildings blend into the natural landscape and not call attention to themselves. Water use, the referral included a daily flow analysis, which assumes significantly below average water use by the residents and only bathroom use in the business park. There was no water allocated for the Wellness Center business operations, the resident staff, which are 20 people, or the business park cafeterias or research manufacturing uses, whatever they might have there. So basically, that's the extent of our comments at this point. This is really not a public comment stage of the process. That we'll know a lot more when we see the environmental documents and have more time to comment then. Do the council members have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I'd like to go ahead and put a motion out on the table to approve the initial project comments to the county planning staff. So we have that out there.
I'll second that.
All right. Does anybody have questions?
I do actually. What did they mean by wellness facility? Like, is that like a gym, or is that someplace where people go and get rehab, or?
Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped over the introductory part because I thought everybody would. So let me just read this one paragraph here. Big Wave Project is a major development proposed for 20 acres agricultural land and wetlands along Airport Street between Half Moon Bay Airport and Pillar Point Marsh. The original project consisted of a business park on the north 15-acre parcel and a wellness center on the south 5-acre parcel, proposed to provide affordable housing for up to 50 developmentally disabled adults and 20 caretakers, along with a gym and community center and potential employment opportunities for the residents.
Okay.
That cover it?
Yep.
Is that a question?
Good answer. So in this, in the referral and the supporting documents, I didn't see any mention of, other than the parking, of traffic in any way. And with this new north parcel alternative, where now all the buildings are in the northern part, it seems to me that I had felt previously that the traffic survey they did before the tunnel opened was insufficient. Now they've moved, and the explanation we got from Scott, I believe, was that all this traffic is going to go out through Capistrano and Princeton, but now all the buildings are up on the north part, leading me to believe people that are going to be going the closest direction to get out to Highway 1. It seems like there's a big hole here in that the traffic survey I didn't think was adequate to begin with, and now all the buildings are in one spot further north and no discussion of traffic or another survey at all.
It's true, the referral that we were sent had no traffic information. The site plan, which I apologize, I just got high resolution site plans today, and they're now posted so you can, and they're right side up, so you can actually see a lot of detail in the site plans. And the north parcel has the same entrances and exits and all, it's all the same. And even the project as it was denied previously had already, they put stuff in the street, whatever, so you can't turn left. You can't go north on Airport. You have to enter from the south, and that has not changed. Basically, when we see the environmental document, they will then be explaining, I assume, that the traffic is going to be all good, and they will have whatever documentation to show that, and that would be the time when we would actually have something to comment on, because there's nothing new at the moment.
Right, exactly. Okay, thank you.
I'm in total agreement, traffic is a huge issue, in my opinion.
Yes, but there's nothing new here now to Dave.
I'm wondering if we should address remediation on the marshlands at all. I noticed that that's in the 8 to 20-year section of the phasing.
That's another thing I didn't go into in the letter. The phasing plan has not changed. It may change before we actually see the project. There's still a dickering, 10 years, 20 years, and so we don't really know yet what they're going to propose as far as that phasing. And, and it was the same thing before. They had the wetlands restoration last. Hasn't changed. It's the same plan as before. They haven't updated it. Same with the landscape plan, has not been updated. Although the county has asked for more detail on the planting plans. We just haven't seen that yet.
So we're just addressing items that have changed?
We're just addressing items in the referral that are, basically that's what the referral is. It says, here's how the project has changed. And so we're commenting on that, asking questions on that.
So one other change is this plan of water and sewer and the necessity of NWSD going to LAFCO and asking for next this area to get water. Clearly, that's unlikely in our political climate. Should we be addressing that at all in this letter?
Basically, when the project went around the first time, they were going to use their well water and Coastside County Water District. They're in no man's land at the moment. They're
Guys, it's really hard to hear.
And that the water supply was one of the big stumbling blocks why the project was denied. They have, Montero says they will supply them with the water. They say they will use Montero water. The county says, well, if you're going to do that, you got to figure out how that's going to go through LAFCO. And there's a letter there from LAFCO saying what the process would be. This all remains to be seen. It's not our area of expertise, and Montero is one of the agencies that got the early referral, so it'll be interesting to see what everybody has to say on that. We ready for public comment? Oh.
So we're limited to commenting on just in relation to how the project has changed.
Basically, we don't need to comment now at all.
Okay.
This is sort of...
well, I just want to make just a couple quick comments.
Yeah.
So it's still in the tsunami zone, but that's not changed. That's known. The location, I think that there were some footprints that were moved a little bit.
Let me clarify. The tsunami issue has changed in that the elevation, the ground floor of the buildings where people are living is now up to 30 feet, which the Coastal Commission said was needed. So they have attempted to address that.
Okay.
Plus, the residential buildings are now further north, up next to Pillar Ridge.
Okay. Probably the most significant issue is the traffic, and it's a whole new ballgame now with the tunnel open, and I was on Capistrano Road going about 5 miles an hour, I could barely get through now, so it's a whole new, I would imagine there will be updated studies for all, whatever, numbers.
This will all come up when they do the environmental document.
Okay.
And then we'll have the actual details of what they're proposing, and we can say whether what they did was adequate or not adequate or whatever. We don't have that information now. All we have to work off is old material, which may be updated, so it would be a waste of time to say it now. See what I mean? This is just the first initial comments.
Right.
Doesn't need to be comprehensive, complete. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right, public comment. I have a speaker slip from Leonard. At this point, if anybody else wants to speak, you don't need to, just raise your hand.
What was that movie? It's back. 20 or 30 years ago. One of the things that jumped out at me when I looked at this, and I don't remember seeing these big numbers before, maybe it was in there and I didn't pay enough attention, but 30,000 cubic yards of grading just kind of sounds like a big number to me.
Where are you reading?
The total grading is actually reduced. What they're doing is adding a lot of gravel. The parking lot.
And even it's, the grading has changed since the referral came out.
Okay, what I'm concerned about is there potentially, and I haven't looked at the plans because I'm kind of maxed out on bandwidth these days, but what I'm concerned about is they're trying to pull the same stunt that some house developer did in Montero, where they come in and jack up the lot and then count the building height against the new level, and the county doesn't enforce the natural grade. The county considers natural grade to be whatever it is the day the planner goes out and looks at it after they've illegally brought in a big pile of dirt. So this is something that's going to have to be watched very closely.
That is in fact what they are planning. They're counting their building height from the gravel building.
Well, they're not allowed to do that.
No, it's from existing grade.
The law says, the county regulations say natural grade. In any case, there's still, as best as I can see without spending an inordinate amount of time reading the documents, there's still no guarantee that by essentially wedging the whole project, scaled down slightly, but let's get real, it's pretty much the whole original project wedged into half the land. They're not guaranteeing that the other parcel is going to be open space. They're very explicitly refusing to say anything like that. So they could get approval to wedge the whole project onto the substantially reduced amount of land, and then come back in a couple of years with a development proposal for the south parcel. So, it's like, do they really think that we're that stupid? Apparently they do. There's still one of the things that hasn't been discussed much is the feeling that there's no demand for the office space. I mean, look at this building here. This is an 8,000 square foot building. GSD is currently the only tenant. And even when the Harbor District moves in here, there's still Liberty Court, which
This is not new, Leonard. This is not part of the change in the project.
All right. Now, one thing that is new then, actually, I don't remember if the landscaping was new. I want to go to that first.
No, it's the same old landscaping, and they've been told they need more detail.
All right, well, let me just mention then that somebody, I don't remember who, many years ago, in reference to some other project, said, don't put up an ugly building and hide it with landscaping. Okay, if you have a project that's visually unacceptable, you can't fix it with landscaping, because landscaping doesn't last. But what's new is, and I don't know if everybody's seen this, because now I forget where I saw it yesterday, but there's a letter from LAFCO dated February that basically is holding this project hostage to try and force a consolidation of MWSD and GSD. They're basically...
It's an interesting letter. It's posted on the Big Wave Issues page.
Okay.
That's not where I saw it. Interesting letter.
That's not where I saw it, but let's make sure everybody's well aware of this.
Well, that's what I'm trying to collect all these documents, so they're all there together.
Okay. So, for everybody who hasn't seen the letter, this project is in, as was said, a no man's land. It's a gap between MWSD as a water provider and CCWD as a water provider. It was in the service area for the private company Citizens Utilities, which MWSD purchased, which includes all of our assets, and one of the assets is the service area. But part of that service area is outside the MWSD corporate boundary. So they would like to either serve it outside their boundary, which is allowed with LAFCO approval under certain limited conditions, and this meets the conditions in state law, or they would want to expand the district boundary, but LAFCO's giving them a hard time in that letter, saying that that would be an overlap of service between GSD as a sanitary district and MWSD as a water and sanitary district. That's an easily solvable problem. It's called service areas. That's what GSD is doing in our application for reorg. We're going to have a parks service district that's not the whole district because it leaves out the part in Half Moon Bay. MWSD could be allowed to expand their service area to include the Big Wave parcel with the restriction that their sewer service area remains what it is today and doesn't expand into the overlap area. Trivially solvable problem. LAFCO's just, forget the word I wanted on this, they're opportunistically using this as yet another attempt to force the consolidation of the two districts.
Okay, let's not get too far afield here. It would be interesting to see how that plays out.
I think that some comment on that, because, you know, that is something new from LAFCO. They haven't been that explicit about it before, by far. So I think that particular thing is appropriate for MCC to comment on, that this project shouldn't be held hostage in LAFCO's zeal to try and force unwanted consolidations.
Well, we don't need to comment on that tonight. We can comment on that later. All right? That may get resolved by itself. It's too early to go in that deep, I really think.
Okay, we'll see.
We haven't even seen what Montera has to say about this. They want to serve the project. We haven't even seen their comment letter. All this will be interesting to see. You know what I mean?
I don't be surprised if they see LAFCO.
Sabrina?
Thank you. Yeah, I was interested to hear about that LAFCO letter. I didn't know anything about it, so I'll be looking on the MCC website for that. I don't have any suggested changes to the letter. It looked good to me. I guess I have a couple questions, and if there's a better time for me to ask them, just explain when. I did miss the last Big Wave MCC meeting, so
that's easy to fix. The
Watch the
PDF
video.
of the presentation is there to look at.
Okay.
You can read the minutes, or you can watch the video, whatever your preferred.
So
the video and the minutes, it's captured the questions and answers, and we tried to capture it so that people could refer to it later.
do you guys have links to your videos on your website? I can't remember.
Yeah.
You do? Okay, good. I'll look for that.
It's on YouTube, so very convenient.
Yeah, but the links to YouTube are there. You know, you can post the whole video on your website if you wanted to.
It's difficult with Squarespace, not impossible.
It works real good. You just click on the thing that says video and you're there.
Okay, I can show you how to do it with Squarespace if you need help. It does have to be on YouTube, you're right. But fortunately, PCTV is now putting all their videos on YouTube, which I'm very excited about. Okay, so as far as, like, I noticed this thing with the Princeton plan where there was zoning, a proposed zoning change for Pillar Point Bluff to make it ag, which didn't make a whole lot of sense to me since obviously that will never be grazed or used as ag land.
Can I interrupt?
Yeah.
All we've seen so far in Princeton is the existing conditions report. So whatever map you're looking at is the existing zoning. There is nothing there proposing any change in zoning yet.
No zoning changes?
There's nothing, we have not seen that yet.
Okay.
That will be the next stage.
So the land that right now, the big wave developers are not planning on developing is currently zoned ag, is that correct?
No, it's zoned waterfront industrial.
Waterfront industrial, and then the parcel that they do want to develop is?
That's zoned light industrial.
Okay, all right, I wanted to make sure I understood that. So there is no proposal for zoning changes at all, it's exactly?
They're not, Princeton has not reached that stage yet.
Okay, but that will be interesting to watch too, especially for that lot there.
Well, the problem being that the way it looks, once the county staff says, okay, your application is complete, at that point, they're anchored in whatever zoning there is now.
And how?
And we're just going to miss it.
Oh, the timing is such that it'll just be?
Yeah, because the Plan Princeton can be done for at least a couple of years.
Huh.
And even the airport land use compatibility plan, which is now the environmental document, is, they're almost they're ready to approve that. And the airport's land use compatibility plan changes the safety zones, and they now come around and cover a lot of those parcels at Bigway where they didn't before. Much further into the property, and I don't know where the line falls, whether it would then disrupt where they've now moved the wellness center to, but it certainly looks like it might, and it's not clear to me whether these ships might just pass in the night here.
And that's not the Princeton plan, that's the airport plan, a separate plan for the.
Right, basically the
the
land
overlay.
use compatibility plan gets finalized, and then that information gets fed into whatever zoning changes happen in the plan, Princeton. But the way the county works it is, you're governed by whatever zoning exists when your application is complete, not when your project gets approved.
And what's the best guesstimate on when the application would be considered
Well, if
complete?
they're saying that they're going to have this environmental document ready in July, you're going to have to be complete before then. Basically, Camille said, she's the project planner, said that they want to get the agency comments to make sure that everything that they've asked for is included. And then, so it sounds like they're close. And if you look at the letters, which are letters from the county on the status of the project over the past year, each letter gets shorter as they give them what they've been wanting, and then the most recent letter is pretty short, so.
Okay. But with planning processes and zoning changes, isn't it possible to prioritize things based on urgency? Like, couldn't the county have prioritized, knowing that this project was coming, hurrying up with getting the zoning finalized so that the new project would have to be current with new zoning?
I guess hurrying up with zoning changes, that's not words that don't go together in a sentence.
Well, I mean,
it's a good, yeah, you
we've been
might
talking about
wonder.
it for years.
Yeah,
Remember when
it's-
Steve Monowitz was here talking about it? How many years? What was that? 5, 6 years ago? You know.
Let
Okay.
Sabrina
All
finish.
right. Let me wrap it up because I'm almost done. So I know that you can only cover the new things in your letter, and I'm not asking you to cover anything else, but I did want to point out that I have noticed on Cypress a uptick in traffic, especially on the weekends. Now, sometimes, Cypress gets backed way up with waiting cars, and there's no stoplight there. So I think that the urgency for putting in a signal at that intersection, if there was going to be any additional development where traffic would need to use that access to Highway 1, and obviously in an emergency, there's a big consideration on, God forbid there's a tsunami and everybody's got to evacuate, how are they going to get out of that, street, because it's really hard to get out now. So I just wanted to mention that it's not gotten better, it's gotten worse, and that's hopefully going to get taken up later. And then I want to understand the tsunami, the change in the tsunami planning, where they have now addressed the Coastal Commission's request that they jack up the height of the building. You said 30 feet, am I understanding that right? So that now the first floor has to be 30 feet off the ground?
No, above sea level.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and that's another thing confusing in here, because Scott Holmes liked to use elevation, where normally you have grade is so many feet above sea level. You see that on a contour map. And then you have the height of the building, and that's measured from grade. Normally, you don't put the roof as the elevation above sea level, but he does. So you got to be careful when you look at the picture. He may be talking about above sea level, or he may be talking about above grade. But basically, for the tsunami, they wanted the floor of wherever the people are actually sleeping to be 30 feet at least above sea level. So the grade at the location now where they've moved it to the north parcel already at a higher grade, and the difference, I think they're at about, 20 feet or something.
Grade is 21 feet for
Yeah.
building one, and they're showing first floor at 23, through 49.
So they're just gonna make the building, they're gonna have a floor of the building to get the people will be sleeping on the second floor. And the first floor is like, we don't know what.
Dead
And
space
Plus, he
or-
calls it a basement, but it's not below ground.
Look at the houses in West Miramar.
That's
where-
what I said
where
when
they're built Up here,
Right.
that's the same thing, it's basically
Well,
building on stilts.
but his elevations show that it isn't closed,
So with,
Basically, it's just blank, and all the commercial buildings are just blank.
I know when, I remember talking to Neil Merrilees about when he built his house that he lives in Miramar, and he said that he couldn't do anything
Right.
on that first floor. Are swimming pools allowed to be indoor swimming pools? Is that considered acceptable in that?
Well, that'll come out in the wash. I mean, whoever was gonna say, no, that won't work. My impression is it's just where the people are sleeping, because the building number, whatever it is, the three-story building, wellness center building, has living quarters on the second and third floor, and the first floor is, your dining room, your kitchen, and that kind of stuff, and that seems to be okay. Presumably, they get run upstairs.
Well, it just doesn't match up with what Neil told me, which is he couldn't have anything on his first floor.
Well, I don't know all the details of
Okay.
that, what those regulations are, but that, when we see the staff report on all those things, then we'll know more.
We'll know more. Okay, thank you.
Elizabeth?
Following the same subject. I don't know what you are commenting here, frankly, because we are talking about 5 blocks pushed here or there, which we don't know the designation, we don't know the uses. This is a clear zoning, and it was a clear zoning when we applied. And the county's intent is actually ignore the zoning and consider the use permit. And my understanding, that's where the Coastal Commission had an issue with the whole project. And changing a zone, if you apply, I apply for a permit, either I confirm 100% of the zoning, or I ask for a use permit, but I can't ask a use permit which changes the designation of the zoning. And the issue is really here. Wellness center is a housing project is prohibited there. The light industrial, if you read the land use books, and the LCP was really meant to be research facilities or light industrial connected to the harbor. Now, how you're talking all of a sudden business park, office park, I don't know what park, 5 big buildings, we don't know what they are, we don't know how many water they're using, we don't know what will be the first floor. Why? You don't know the traffic, why are we considering it? If they really want to change the use and the designation of the uses, the proper channel is go and change the zoning. Big deal, they don't want to do it. Because then they have to prove that all that space, which was designated for a certain use, is not needed anymore. That's the criteria to change the zoning. They have a better use which is needed, the old zoning is not needed. Now, don't we need light industrial? Don't we need zoning for possibly research facilities? Don't we need all those? Really, throw it out the window and consider it. Only worry about this. The 5 big blocks, which we don't know what they are and who will be there and how many people using it, comment on it. How can you comment on it? Really. And how can you comment a housing project which now they temporarily not talking about? I mean, if you listen to or read about all these issues of what is a living housing project, can you rent it for 30 days? Can you live in it for a year? Is that housing? Is that hotel? Is that motel? Those are criteria which actually very clear. And ask for a permit for something which is not. Comment on it. Really. We have 2 designated housing sites, by the way, in Mons Beach, which was
Well, I didn't quite hear the
two
first part.
big designated housing sites, affordable housing sites, Moss Beach, which has to have water allocated to them. That's the first priority for development. They are empty. One is standing to the hospital. Why we need a new housing project? Why we need water allocation for it when there's already an unused one? Again, explain. And the Coastal Commission found problem with all this. So I don't care if it's 5 blocks, 6 blocks. They have to prove it. It's needed. It's conforming to the zoning, and they have a use for it, and not just speculating with big boxes and square footages. And whatever happens, happens because it's already there, right? So thank you.
Thank you. Can we just vote?
I think these are relevant comments.
Please be quick, because you're,
You already spoke, Leonard.
yeah.
Yeah.
What?
Read the Midcoast Council bylaws, public forum.
Come on.
The El Granada School, which I think is at elevation 42 feet MSL, is no longer legally a tsunami evacuation site, so I don't understand how 30 feet here meets current requirements. That's potentially still a big problem. The other thing I wanted to mention is regarding zoning, there's a difference between what state law allows and county's policy. State law, this was explained to me by GSE's previous general counsel, the zoning can be changed when the approved stamp is in midair, and if it hasn't hit the paper yet, the jurisdiction is allowed to, but not required to, enforce the new zoning. So the county chooses to grandfather everything as of the time the application is designated complete. They're not required to. They can certainly enforce new zoning prior to any project approval. It's just how they choose to do it.
Okay, close the public comment. Dave?
I did want to come back to one other thing. He is in fact counting height against the grade fill level. If you look at the subdivision map, it clearly shows a 20-foot contour, and he's showing basement floor elevation 23 feet, 2 feet above contour, total height 49. Total height 22. So he is in fact starting from grade fill level at the basement. I think we should address that in the letter. And that is an error in the application.
So you're getting this off the site plan now?
The tentative subdivision map.
Well, could we submit a separate letter? I mean,
I'm suggesting that we just add 1 or 2 sentences saying if the subdivision map appears to be using the wrong baseline for the height of the building.
there was something in, oh, I know. This was in the, one of the letters from the county. And they asked the applicant that, they said that the elevations didn't match, that the subdivision map figures for grade or whatever didn't match what was in the application, and they need to make it match. So
Okay.
that comment has been made.
That's covered now.
Okay. So we have a motion on the table to approve?
Can I ask a question? Just
Yeah.
if this is out of my own ignorance. So listening to Elizabeth West's previous comments, so the 3 things I pulled out of what she's saying is you have to prove a need, it's got to conform to the zoning, and if you're going to change the zoning, then we're talking about use permit changes. What have I got confused here, and what's your take on this? Since this all started before I was involved, so I'm...
Is this something we need to settle tonight?
Do you think
approve
that-
this letter? Or is this a broader thing that we might take up later when we're commenting on that, when we actually have the full project?
My question would be this: where do the things that she says fit into what we're addressing, or don't they?
And if they don't, when will they, right?
My handicap is that I'm not the project planner.
That's a good point.
And I have done a lot of research on this topic, but I am not a project planner.
Mhm.
And so what are the questions again?
She just, I mean, and I just pulled out 3 different things she said because she talked at length. And maybe someone else can help me here.
These are same comments that have been made on this project for years.
Oh, okay.
Not new.
And I don't think that any of them have to do with comments on the application.
On the application, okay, that's what I didn't know.
They have to do with when it gets approved, what are the grounds for approval, and I don't think need has ever been a requirement for approval.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you. I didn't think, I just know that's true.
I mean, it should be, but I don't think it has.
All right, well, I did put a motion on the table, and that was to approve the initial project comments to county planning staff.
Are we ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Lisa.
Unanimously approved?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Next item on the agenda is council activity. Anybody have anything to report? Dave?
Yes, I did attend the Half Moon Bay Library stakeholders meeting today. I did bring up the question, they brought up the fact that we only have one library, we used to have 3, one in Pescadero, one in El Dorado, and one in Half Moon Bay. I did bring up the question of whether we could perhaps get another library in the code. They said basically no way, they won't even address the funding. But they are trying to involve the community very extensively, looking at what people want in design features, community services, community rooms versus the library, appearance of the library, traffic flow. So it seems to be a pretty thorough set of meetings. There's large representation from county, school district, member of organization, Coastside Mothers Club, Boys and Girls Club, et cetera. So well attended, good comments, and as I said, there's community meeting tomorrow night. That will be the pattern. There's 2 more stakeholder meetings before it goes to the city council to make a decision, and there's a community meeting after each one.
The stakeholder meetings, are these the same stakeholders or
They are
different
trying
groups?
to the same stakeholders.
So will you be able to continue with
I will
this?
continue.
Oh, thank you.
That's great, thank you.
Anybody else?
I regret to announce that I will not be at the next MCC meeting. I'll be out of town. Sorry about that. And I attended the opening of the Devil's Slide Trail Park. Saw Dave there on March 27th. It was really lovely. The day was nice. Lots of people there. Everybody was in a great mood. I did ride my bike there, and obviously I made it there and back. But the comments that we heard today are not lessened by how wonderful that ceremony was. And in fact, that was on a Thursday. Traffic was not that bad as I rode my bike home from that, but my wife and son went there on Saturday, and as you might expect on a nice sunny day, on a weekend, it was everything that everybody was worried about as far as traffic. And I just say again that I hope that the Pedro Point Trail and the Green Valley Trail are high up on the priority list for the county.
I do have a comment, more information on that if you want to hear that.
Well, tell us now.
The property where that trail is being built is owned by the owner of the property that owns the blockhouse, that's Andy Ecclestein, and they are negotiating easements with them. That's one of the reasons this part has been delayed. They haven't gotten easement negotiated.
That's for the Pedro Point Trail.
That's for the Green Valley.
Green Valley Trail.
The Pedro Point Trail, I have information from Lynn Adams, the landowner whose easement would be needed to complete that trail and then have degenerate the property, turns out to have built on county property that appears, and so the county may have some leverage in getting that.
Great. Okay, future agendas. Oh, sorry, Dan.
Sorry, yeah, just wanted to report on the, I did mention a little thing earlier, but I was at the last Harbor Commission meeting last Wednesday, and the next one will be, I believe it's I believe it's next Wednesday in South San Francisco. But they did, they did vote to declare the post office lot surplus, and I just would encourage as many people in the community that could see that potentially our town center, which is the lifeblood of our community, could drastically change for possibly the not so good for our community if the wrong if the property goes in the direction of the wrong purpose. The property was deeded to the district many years ago, and I believe that the purpose was always intended to be for community use. And so I'm just find it difficult to accept that the Harbor District would put it on the open market. And so I just encourage the community to follow this particular issue and come to the Harbor District meeting at public comment and let them know how you feel.
Okay.
Thank you.
Future agendas, April 23rd looks pretty full. We have rodenticides, Montera Coast, 7th Street, third time's the charm, and presentation on Devil Slide Ride, which is a bicycle event. And then on May 14th, so far we've got the Coastside Emergency Corps presentation. Does anybody else have anything they want to have on the agenda soon?
Wait, I'm sorry, what's the 14th?
May 14th.
Oh, May 14th, okay. And that's emergency presentation.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm hanging in here.
Okay, so I guess we have a motion for adjournment?
I give a motion for adjournment.
Second. Adjourned.